have been approved in the immediate area. Next slide, please. Upon circulation of the application, we do not receive any objections to the application from internal or external agencies. We did receive one comment from the public. This correspondence was forwarded to the committee in full for their review. The comment was received from Mr. Daryl Herman, who lives at 105 West Lawn. This property abuts the subject property on the southwest corner. That's the one that I showed you a picture of. He has expressed the following summary of concerns. Property extents do not appear to line up on the air photo provided. Property extents should be verified by a proper survey. This large structure could create worse drainage issues in the area. The structure will inhibit access to the utility corridor for Elk Energy or cause access challenges if fire were to occur. Pole barn structures are not compatible with the character of a residential neighborhood. Steel cladding and roofs create a noise disruption, and the height of the structure blocks sunlight. He also had concerns that the structure will be converted into habitable living space or home business, and is concerned that the structure is over the lot coverage provision. For the committee's information, air photos in some areas appear to be shifted. We are aware of this occurring on this property. The issue lies with the impact layer and also the oblique angle that the air photo is flown at. The owner will need to ensure the structure is located as proposed 4 feet from the property line. He will need to prove that when he files for a building permit. There has not been any rear yard electrical easement identified in the application. The structure being located 4 feet from the property line does satisfy the requirements for the fire code. The town bylaw does not prevent the use of metal cladding or steel roofs on structures. Habitable living space or a home business are not permitted in an accessory structure in an R1.1 zoning category. The existing lot is 50 by 20, or sorry, the existing lot is 50 by 120, which equals 6,000 square feet. So 40% of 6,000 equals 2,400 square feet. This house is 1,270 square feet, and the proposal is 990 in square feet. That comes to a total of 2,260. So 2,260 square feet for lot coverage. This proposal is therefore under the 40% lot coverage. At this point, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, for discussion and questions.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
It's your turn to speak.
Sorry. Yeah, I heard the complaints about the structure and all that, and I don't see it being a problem with drainage at all. And my father's like a classic car enthusiast, right? He has a 1940 Chevy, and he's got his Chrysler 300. It's going to be mainly just to store vehicles in and like yard work or seasonal stuff and whatever, right? If he can only do the 750 square feet, if he puts his classic car and his regular car, because he needs something covered so it's not getting full of snow in the winter and stuff, because he's not in the best health, so he can't be shoveling his car off and stuff. And there won't be much room to do anything else in there or store anything else that he has in his house, right? Into the garage. So that's why we need a little bit bigger structure.
Is that it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Benetto?
I just have a couple questions. For the drainage, you're ready to take care of that problem? You're going to put eave troughs on this building and everything?
Yep, we are.
And you're going to take care of the drainage so it'll drain?
We will, yes.
Okay, I'm good.
Any other questions? Mr. Pocock?
It's more of a comment. Like, I know we went with a big size across the street, but that house had alley access. This house doesn't really have any alley access, so I think it's a bit of a large structure for a small laneway to get back there for any utility vehicles, because the way it looks like is even to put two cars in there, you're going to have to do a lot of moving back and forth. And I know there is water issues. There has been water issues in the past in that area, so I would be a bit more concerned about just putting eave troughs in and just calling it a day. It might want to be tied to the storm sewer. If that can be fixed, then I guess that would be more of a way for me to be accepting of this property, this size. But right now, I think 750 square feet is sufficient for that property.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just?
Anyone else? Mr. Boudreau, anything? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of agreeing with what Phil said. The house and the proposed structure are almost the same size on a small lot, and it kind of seems like the proposed storage building or barn or garage is going to be overpowering the house in the residential area. I'm kind of agreeing it's a little bit too big for the smaller lot. That's my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So Mr. Hayes, do you have any thoughts about reducing it?
I'm not really sure, because he's already paid the $4,000 for the company to come and build this size, like just for the drawings and everything else, right? So if we have to reduce it, we have to redo all the drawings and everything over again. Like, we have no problem connecting to the sewer. We can do that. I just feel like if we have much smaller than what it is, we won't have enough room for the storage that we need. Like, he is planning on buying another classic car for me and him to work on. And if he has two cars in there already, there will be no room for the third car for me and him to do a project together. And
Okay, thanks, Mr. Beneteau.
I have a problem telling him to reduce it when Rita's just told us that he's under the ground coverage and everything. And especially when we pass one that's right across the road, that it's almost bigger than the house that's across the road from there. And we can't tell him to hook up to the storm sewers, can we?
We can.
Can we?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
That could be one of the conditions. If they're permitted to hook up to the storm sewers for water, I'm not sure. Whatever they're permitted.
Danny's got a question.
Mr. Boudreau.
For you, Mr. Chairman, I know the size he wants for the storage of vehicles. Has any thought been put into attaching it to the main dwelling so he can achieve that 1,000 square feet? That makes him a little more legitimate.
It's legitimate. It is legitimate, is it not?
Is that directed to Mr. Hayes?
To the committee and to Mr. Hayes.
But it is legitimate. It is legitimate.
In what aspect, Mr. Beneteau?
Rita's like, he's not covering any more. He's got the right amount of coverage on the ground and everything, Danny. He's not oversized on the lot or nothing. Like Rita just got done saying, like, he's allowed, or I'm sorry, Corinne said he's allowed 20 square feet. He's under about 3,000 square feet under what he could put there. Am I not right, Corinne?
That is right, Mr. Beneteau. One thing to consider also is that the bylaw does allow you to build two accessory structures or a combination of accessory structures up to 1,000 square feet on or in the R11 zoning district. So, Mr. Hayes could build a 750 square foot structure and then also build the equivalent, whatever is left that is allowed up to 1,000 square feet. So what he wants to do is he wants to combine that to make it all under one roof. And that's simply what we have had other applications through this committee for in the past, that they have allowed up to 1,000 square feet, but no more than that. So I just wanted to add that.
All right, thank you.
just through you, Mr. Chairman, to Corinne again, he's not doing anything that's wrong. Am I right? Like Danny said, that way he'd be within bounds, but he is within bounds.
Yes, that is true. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The lot coverage, which I read out, has been calculated. He would be up to or getting close to what he is allowed for the 40% lot coverage at 990 square feet for the structure.
Thank you. Is there anyone else out there that wishes to speak on the application? Phil, I'll go back to you. Mr. Herdman? Go ahead.
Mr. Herdman, you are muted.
Sorry, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, thank you for taking my time to talk. Just one comment I'd like to say is to Mr. Benito. Past exceptions have been made, and if you look throughout the town, some of these exemptions and on some of the other streets that are made, they have alleyway access where a pole barn structure would have alleyway access, and it wouldn't impede other neighboring properties. Such structures can be looked at throughout the town. I do live right behind the structure, and for me, I don't have much of a backyard as it is, and I know zoning bylaws and yard sizes are getting smaller and smaller. I really like to take in consideration if all the members really think about what it would be like if you put yourself in the shoes of a resident that would be affected by this. Walking out on their backyard deck and looking at a structure that's over 30 some feet wide and 13 feet from the ground to the eaves truss plus the pitch of the roof. You're talking a structure that's 25 feet probably in height. If I can share my screen, I'm not too sure if I could share my screen, if the host would let me share my screen, I could show you a view of my current looking out my backyard at one steel structure as it is, and currently I'll be looking at another one if this gets approved. With the thoughts of eaves troughs and water issues, yeah, like the neighboring lot beside me, I put in over about 400 yards of dirt on the empty lot beside me with the permission of the property owner to try to remove some of the mosquito haven that's been created by water issues already. The property that has a pole barn next door to Mr. Hayes has eaves troughs. They don't do anything. All the water sits in the backyard in ponds. I put in a proper rear yard drainage in my yard. I paid for the sewer connection. I hooked all that up. I have big concerns with this. You know, if it's to store a car or two, you know, and they met the 750, that's the actual bylaw. The 1,000 is a provision within that. But it says no building shall exceed 750 meters squared. And then it says in 1,000 feet squared respectively. But if you go look at other municipalities out there, if you go look at Amherstburg, they only allow 35% coverage, 10% for accessory buildings. Lakeshore only allows an accessory building of 500 square feet. These are other building codes. Town of LaSalle doesn't allow any pole barns whatsoever. I have big issues with this. I think there needs to be exceptions. Yes, there should be exceptions in certain cases where it backs onto an alley street or a side street, or you know, behind Shoppers Drug Mart is a perfect example where the house is on Arthur and the pole barn is on the back street behind it. This isn't that situation. There's a hydro line running through there. There's all kinds of issues. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Herdman. Mr. Pocock.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Say again, like this isn't backing onto an alley, so that's why, for right now, I'm not in agreement with giving him the allowance for the bigger structure. And if it is, I'd prefer if we do allow, I'd prefer to have him tie into the storm sewer structure as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Just on the matter of tying into the storm sewer, the town actually encouraged disconnections of downspouts to storm sewers just to alleviate the pressures on our storm sewer system and to prevent flooding. So perhaps there are other mitigation measures for drainage.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, I'm going to give you one more crack at this. You go ahead.
This is to go rebuttal back to Rita. Is that not true though in planning on all new development and subdivisions that all properties must have a rear yard drain? Because if that's the case, those eaves troughs should be not tied into, but those eaves troughs should be graded so that way the rear yard drain could collect that water. So that way we're not dealing with a health unit violation where we have mosquito pooling. And I also have a huge issue with the fact that the town of Essex doesn't allow grade certificates or doesn't ask for grade certificates on any planning. Some of these new subdivisions within the town of Essex have 2-foot differences between existing lots and new lots.
Different tangents here.
Mr. Herman, on this, let's stay with this application. Okay, Mr. Hayes, one more crack at this.
I just wanted to say, like the building that we're proposing to build is only 6 feet difference, 6 feet by 9 feet difference than what we're allowed to build. And I just want to say about the drainage issues too. Like Mr. Herman's backyard is raised up probably 2 to 3 feet higher than everybody else behind him's yard. So shouldn't that cause for concern too?
So Mr. Herniman, sorry, Mr. Hayes, I see that you are screen sharing. We were going to allow you to do that. Let's let Mr. Hayes, his comments go with the committee, and then you can screen share once again.
Okay, thank you.
Allows you at that time, okay? So please turn off the screen sharing at this time.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, are you finished?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from the committee? Anything else from anybody else in the public? Mr. Herman, you've had your opportunities.
I just want to share the screen.
You allowed him, I turned it on.
No, I think we're fine. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go with the application.
Mr. Benedetto moves the application in favor of the application with any conditions?
Just that he puts eave troughs, that he hooks up to everything he's supposed to hook up to for the drainage. Like, we can't tell him to hook up to the sewers, can we? Like Rita said.
Okay, the answer to that is fairly no.
Okay, so as long as he eave troughs it and he handles his own water.
Okay, I need a seconder on that. I'm not getting a seconder. So that motion's lost. I need another motion. Mr. Pocock.
Motion to deny application.
Mr. Pocock moves to deny. Before I get a seconder, I'll get the seconder first. Need a seconder for Mr. Pocock's motion? Mr. Boudreau. Questions? I have one.
I have one too.
If Mr. Hayes agrees to build it according to the bylaw, and will you vote in favor of that?
He wouldn't need to come to us if that was the case. Right? If he goes to the 750, he wouldn't need to come to us anyways.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to defer the application. Second.
I'm not seconding it.
You want to comment? No, we got a
Yeah,
second.
I want to know why he wants to deny it. I don't see why we're denying it.
I think it doesn't fit in. It's too big. And there's not that rear yard access. I don't need to really give a reason, but I'm giving you the reason that there's only the only one access into the backyard compared to the one that was across the street that had the alley access. I think it's just too large of a building that we keep on going down this terrible road.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor of motion? Opposed? It's carried. So Mr. Hayes, your application's been denied.
So is there anything I gotta appeal it then?
Yes, you have the opportunity to appeal it. You have 20 days, I believe, in order to do so. So it can be appealed. They'll pass.
Okay, thank you.
Still want to motion it again?
No, that's all that we need, because it was
Yeah,
tonight.
that's it.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. You have to see the best of it, yeah. That's fine.
Okay, next on the agenda is B 2020, Richard and Beverly Bono. We are going to deal with the consent application, and I'll turn it over to Corrine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The owners of the property are Richard and Beverly Bono. Their agent, who is joining us today, is Mr. Jerry Goldberg. The property is 171 Harvey Street, Essex Center, Ward 1. The official plan designation for this property is residential, and the zoning for this property is residential district R1.1, and that's for low density housing on urban lots. Next slide, please. So the existing property is a vacant lot that is 80 feet wide. It is located in an older neighborhood with single family dwellings. The owners wish to sever this lot to create one additional infill lot. You'll see that on the left-hand screen. The green would be the retained, the purple is the severed. Next slide, please. Here are some pictures of the neighborhood. So the top photos, the subject site is in the middle. The on either side of those pictures is the adjacent properties. The ones below are properties across the street, just to give you a general idea of the character, the older neighborhood that this is. Bit of a wide street. There is some street parking on the street as well. Next slide, please. In accordance with section 6.4 of the official plan, in considering an application for consent, committee should have regard to, number one, does the application conform to the policies of the PPS? There are no conflicts with the Planning Act or the provincial policy statement. Number two, how does this satisfy the policies of the official plan? Official plan does encourage infilling of existing residential developed areas. Number three, does this application comply with the zoning bylaw? Single detached dwellings are permitted in the R11 zone. The minimum lot frontage in an R1.1 zone is 50 feet. A minor variance is required as a result of this severance. This neighborhood does contain some undersized lots, which are less than 50-foot frontage, the 50-foot frontage requirement. And further, there is adequate provision of potable water supply, sanitary sewage treatment and disposal, and stormwater management in accordance with the official plan. This proposed lot will have access to municipal water and is serviced by storm and sanitary sewers. Next slide, please. On this air photo, you can see the property outlined in red. And then what I've done is I've also just noted a couple of the properties in the neighborhood that are just under 50 feet. So they're roughly between the measurements of 45 feet wide up to 49 feet wide. Should the committee choose to approve this application, approval should be subject to the satisfying the following conditions: submission of a registered reference plan, submission of signed transfers, submission of confirmation of all taxes paid, submission of drainage apportionments, payment of the parkland dedication fee, and approval of the associated minor variance. All conditions should be met by October 20th of next year. Next slide, please. As a result of the proposed consent, A minor variance approval is necessary to allow a reduction in the minimum lot width, which is 50 feet prescribed in the R1.1 zoning district to the proposed 42.5 foot wide severed and retained properties. You can see here, these are the drawings that were submitted with the application. The lot layout in the middle, and then the side view on the side. To the proposed structure, which does not have an attached garage, side yard setback would need to be 10 feet. The proposal above would reduce the side yard setback from 9 feet to 8.6 feet on the retained and severed parcels. Next slide, please. When reviewing applications for minor variance, the committee should be satisfied that the 4 policy tests are met. Number 1, consents for new development consents for new development parcels are permitted on lands designated residential in the official plan. Number 2, lots within the residential district vary greatly. There are lots within this neighborhood, as I've said, that are less than 50 feet in width. Number 3, the Harvey Street neighborhood contains single-family dwellings. For the committee's information, the R11 zone does permit 1 second dwelling unit to be located within the dwelling, provided there is no external indication of this. The applicants are proposing to construct a new single-family dwelling on the severed and the retained parcels. They are proposing to include a second dwelling unit within each of these dwellings. 1 parking space is required for the main dwelling, and one parking space is required for the second dwelling unit. That's 2 total. The required parking spaces will be accommodated within the proposed driveways. The entrance to the dwelling and the second unit must be shared. There is to be no external indication of a second dwelling unit from the street. The applicants are also asking for relief to reduce the required side yard setback where there is no attached garage from 10 feet to 9 feet and 8.6 feet respectively. The typical side yard setback for an interior lot without an attached garage is usually 4 feet. The variance is necessary to accommodate the associated lot severance, frontage relief, and side yard setback relief of 1 foot and 1.4 feet respectively. Next slide, please. We received comments from IRCA and they had no objections. We received comments from our Director of Infrastructure Services, Kevin Gerard. He includes each single family dwelling unit will require its own storm, water, and sanitary services, complete with all necessary valves and cleanouts to infrastructure services satisfaction. Each single family dwelling unit will require its own water meter and service sewer connection. Horizontal separation between sewer connections and water services are to be consistent with the MECP standards. A metal cleanout cap is required for all cleanouts. Storm sewer is a clay pipe currently. Sewer connection existence, material and grades are to be verified by the owner, and this is subject to indemnity driveway deposit for the building permit. He further states there has been no identified issues with sanitary or water capacity issues fronting this property. The town has not received any petitions. As with every residential properties in the town, eaves troughs are not recommended to be connected to the storm sewers, or rather sheds onto grass and impervious ground. There is no requirement for infrastructure services or building that requires the stormwater, sump pump, or eaves to be tied into storm sewers. In fact, there is a subsidy program available to residents to help alleviate issues with flooding. Kevin Carter, the chief building official, has advised that he has concerns with the proposal design due to the potential for the illegal installation of a third dwelling unit in the basement. Mr. Carter asked that interior drawings be submitted for review. We have also received several comments from the public, which were forwarded to the committee for review in full. They include Ms. Faye Herman, located at 187 Harvey Street, Mr. James Matthews at 181 Harvey Street, and Mr. Mike Spitaleri at 160 Albert Street. Also Mrs. Tawny Scott at 183 Harvey Street. We have also received from the public a petition containing 33 signatures of residences from the Harvey Street and adjacent Albert Street neighborhoods. Real quickly, I'm just going to read the top statement of the petition. We, the undersigned, strongly oppose these applications for 171 Harvey Street. And it is for the following reasons. Mature trees will be destroyed and therefore oxygen lost. Additional water into an already compromised older sewer. Stormwater issues on Harvey Street. Parking on the boulevard structure does not fit in on the site. Historical old homes are on these sites, or are in this neighborhood, pardon me. This will decrease the value of our homes and properties. The excellent rapport neighbors have in this neighborhood, they will sell their homes. No emergency access to hydro in back of the property. And we received, again, 33 signatures on this petition that has been forwarded to the members. Next slide, please. All public comments have been forwarded to the committee, as I've mentioned. Just a quick summary of the concerns. Drainage capacity in the sewers. We have received comments from the Director of Infrastructure Services. Parking needs for these development or dwelling units will overflow onto the street and block sidewalks. Driveways on these sites can accommodate the 2 space requirement in the zoning bylaw. Any additional cars utilized by the residents would then typically park along the shoulder of the roadway. Loss of mature trees was reported. Town of Essex, just for the committee's information, Town of Essex does not have a tree cutting bylaw that would prevent any tree removal. The proposed structures appear to be 3 stories was another concern. Height is measured, for the committee's information, height is measured from the grade to the eaves of the structure. The applicants have identified the height, and it would be under the 32 feet zoning provision. The basement level that is shown on your screen here, it is half in the ground and half out of the ground. So it does appear to look like 3 stories. It is 2 stories with 1 basement. The proposal might accommodate 3 dwelling units was another concern, and the zoning bylaw does not permit 3 units in the R1.1 category, just to emphasize. A second dwelling unit, though, would be permitted. A third is prohibited. Next slide, please. I've added the slide just to give you just a recap of some of the character of the neighborhood. The top left corner is a structure that is on Albert Street, and the bottom left-hand corner is a 2 sites that are around the corner. The rest are on Harvey Street. Next slide, please. As we received multiple concerns from the public, as well as from the building department, the applicants took these concerns into consideration. They have proposed a preliminary new design. This new site, however, this layout and elevations were just received yesterday evening by staff. Therefore, staff have not had an opportunity to fully review the new proposal or to circulate these plans to the committee, internal departments, external agencies, or the public. These are major changes to the original design and therefore will require full circulation. The applicants and their agent were advised of this, and as a result, the applicants are requesting that this application be deferred until December, the December meeting, to allow staff time to review the proposal and to complete the formal circulation process. Preliminary review of the submitted drawings shown on the screen here, it does show that there is some major changes. It's going from a 2-story with a basement to a 1-story with a basement and also with attached garages. As we have not had an opportunity to review this fully or circulate the information, I am not actually able to speak to this proposal further. And at this point, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Corinne. So we'll go to Mr. Goldberg, and then we'll go to the committee, and then we'll go out to the public. So Mr. Goldberg, it's your turn. Can you hear me, Mr. Goldberg?
Can I ask a question? Why are you going any further when they're asking to defer it till December?
Mr. Goldberg, it seems that you might be having some technical difficulties.
Because they want to hear all the complaints. Oh, okay. Okay. No, it's fine. I just want to know. That's why we're doing it. Okay.
Mr. Goldberg?
It's straight up. Okay, we'll go to the committee. Any questions? Seeing none from the committee, I'll move to the public and I'll allow the speakers 5 minutes to speak. And I'm not sure who's going to be first here. Which direction are we going here?
We do have Faye Herneman.
Okay, we'll start with Mrs. Herman. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Go ahead. It's your turn to speak on the application.
I don't know.
Ms. Herneman, we can hear you.
Great. I don't know how to get my face in there.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
We don't need the video. Your audio would work fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and gentlemen, Committee of Adjustment. I noticed that you show existing pictures of homes that have been here for many, many years. This is the year 220. Those homes and what can be built there today are two different sets of issues. The cars parking on the boulevard are going to cause many visibility issues, along with the fact that infrastructure on the street is so old and inadequate to handle the volume of water that will be generated by the large number of people that this lot and Severance will accommodate. We've had at 192 Harvey Street, a large cave-in hole in front of their driveway. Further down the road, we had another large cave-in hole. ELK comes and does a bandage solution. In front of my house, we've had the water on the road because when there's the rain, because of the lack of our proper infrastructure. We have East Indians that want to come here and have a large home built so they can accommodate their families and their grandparents. That lot would be great to provide it for East Indians that want to come to our area and invest in our town of Essex. We have a petition that taxpayers from this area who have lived here for many years are asking you, please do not approve the plans that are shown today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herdman. Mr. Goldberg, we'll go back to you first, and then we'll continue on. You must be muted.
We're still having a difficult time hearing you, Mr. Goldberg.
We can't hear you.
Mr. Dufour, Mr. Chair, if I may, Jerry, if you can hear me, you may want to just check at the bottom of your screen. If you can hear me, check at the bottom of your screen for the speaker. So yes, I noticed that you're unmuting yourself and muting yourself, but it may lie in the actual speaker setting on your computer. So Mr. Chair, perhaps we can come back to him again.
Oh, okay, next, Mr. Mathis, are you to speak on the application?
Yes, sir. Hopefully you can hear me there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I noticed that the first application, they were going to build a 3-plex. And now they're going to change it to just a 2 with a garage. And I don't even know how they're going to fit that on a 42.5-foot lot. Then they have no green space at all. Like where, I don't know where the grass, like you have no yard. There's not going to be any yard left. And of course, that like I say, it's going to spill out into the boulevard where there's no, people park in front of my house at times. and there's no parking at all. I don't know what else to say, really. I sent my my request in there anyhow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll move to,
We have Paul and Tawny Scott who are also here. Or how, may I just say something? Mr. Goldberg, I know that you're having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure if you might be able to call the office and maybe we can put you on speakerphone. That way you can stay on video, but you can be heard through one of our members, one of our administration's phone systems. Are you able to do that? Put a thumbs up if you're going to give us a call. Okay, perfect. Please call our phone and dial extension 1136. In the meantime, we can move forward to Paul and Tawny Scott.
okay, we'll move to Paul and Tawny Scott's. Are you guys there?
Paul and Tawny Scott here. We agree with like some points that James and Faye made, especially about the parking. I know in the slideshow they mentioned there was parking on the street. There is absolutely no parking on the street. It's greenland, so it'd be ruts created if the overflow did happen on the street. I'd also like to say the adjacent housing, the original plans were, what was it, 30 some odd feet for the roof line. The adjacent housing roof line being 10 and 11 feet. I think these new structures would tower over them. I'd also like to request if we can go over the 60-meter rule that the town of Essex has put out, just by the petition, how so many people now have a voice on this, opposing this variance. And I believe that's everything.
That's it?
I think so.
Is that it?
Yeah, I believe that's everything.
Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Hertman on this one, Daryl?
No.
Yes.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, yes, I am. I actually stayed on just to hear this.
Is that your wife that already spoke?
No, it's actually my mother, sir.
Okay.
I grew up in this neighborhood, and I just stayed on just because I would like to comment with the rest of the members of the neighborhood that there is no parking on the side. It is green space, and part of the reason why the sewers continue to collapse is because of excessively weighted vehicles parking on the boulevard green space, and that's causing some of the issues with the sewers on that road. So just that is part of one of the reasons why that's happening. And the other thing I would like to say is mention to some of the other lots that are on that street and adjacent streets that are under the 50-foot minimum sizing, that do have the actual 10-foot setbacks on the side. That's because their garage is on this, or not their garage, their driveway's on the side. So it allows them to have more parking off of the street. So I just like to take that in consideration on the first set of drawings that were permitted and sent over. The second set of drawings, I would like to say, look great.
Hey, thanks. We'll take that as a positive.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask if you could humor us, and I think we have maybe a solution to getting Mr. Goldberg's audio. What I'm going to do is I have him on speakerphone, and I'm going to use my microphone to allow him to speak with your permission.
Go ahead. We'll turn it over to him right now.
Okay, let's give this a try.
Thank you, everyone. I act for the Bonos. The Bonos own this vacant lot for a number of years. There used to be an old home on the property. It was torn down a few years ago. They've been trying to sell the home, and they've ran into problems because of the size. No one wants to spend money on an 80-foot lot and build a fairly large single-family home in that particular neighborhood. So as my clients were able to sell the property to a developer builder who has wanted to sever it. It's an 80-foot lot to 42.5 feet, and then put together a plan. And we agree with everything that Corrine has already stated to the committee. When we heard from the neighbors and their concerns, I spoke to my clients. I said, we got to amend and change the plan. And that's what was done. And it was filed late yesterday. And I was glad to hear from Daryl Herman, who looked at it and said, yeah, this is a vast improvement because it'll allow for parking on the property. It'll allow for saving of the trees because of the indentations that they're going to do rather than the boxy look, the high boxy look that was before. So what my client has done is try to alleviate a lot of these legitimate concerns of the committee. Because as Corrine has already said and the members have indicated, it complies with the zoning, the use, there's adequate sewers, etc. So the issue, though, is I would let our client request a deferment to the next meeting on the basis that, no, shut it off, on the basis that we can recirculate this new drawing, and we're also going to need, unfortunately, probably another minor variance because the garages take up approximately a little more than what the bylaw says in relation to the footage. But this, our submission is a deferral should be allowed because I believe everyone will benefit. The neighbors' concerns will be addressed. We're going to have a filled-in lot, which is better for the town of Essex, and there will be adequate green space. And this way, at that next meeting, we can have proper pictures, drawings, show the internal sizes, how the entrance to the other unit would be. So that's our request, and for those reasons to consider a deferment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Any comments from the committee? Has everyone from the public been heard? So, Mr. Goldberg, we can actually make a decision on the consent application, and we can defer the minor variance application if that works for you.
Corrine?
Excuse me, I have a question again, please.
Mr. Goldberg, can you hear me?
If the committee would consider the severance this evening and we defer the applications for the variance.
Yes, that's correct. Or you want them both deferred?
Or on the alternative, we defer the both of them. Or as the gentleman said, we could, I suggest that we hear and vote on both, but if on the variance with a condition that a further variance may be required, but I don't know if that would be good planning. No, I don't think that'd be good planning at all.
So you want them both deferred, or we'll vote on the consent application?
Vote on the consent application.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion. Is there any questions first?
Mr. Paul?
I have a question.
I'm going back to the public. Who am I?
Paul, Tawny, Scott did have their hand raised, and then James Matthews.
Okay. Paul and Tanya, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like you to defer this, and I was wondering if my 60-meter rule could be addressed. We can reach that out to further neighborhoods before we pass anything. Thank you.
I'm not understanding what you're asking.
There's a 60-meter rule on your website that allows the paperwork to go out to. I'm wondering if we could reach that further out, because I know there's a concern of further residents didn't realize that this was going through.
No, that isn't necessary, correct?
So our requirements are 60 meters,
Yeah.
and we do require that notices be placed in front of the property so that anyone driving by can stop and they can give us a call and request for further information with regards to the application. And anybody who has written us or who has called with regards to this application will absolutely, no matter what, be advised if the application is deferred, say, will be advised when the application does come forward again to the committee. So anybody that has made, you know, a comment, an email, a phone call, anything, they will also be notified, whether they're in that 60 meters or not.
So through the chair, it's Rita. Mr. Scott, if you've provided us with your contact information and you've spoken tonight on the record, we will put you on our mailing list.
Okay, I'm already on the mailing list. I was just speaking out for further out residents that had an interest in this.
Okay, thank you.
James Matthews did, and then Daryl Herneman has his hand up as well.
Who's
Daryl Herneman has his hand up, but James Matthew was next.
Mr. Herdman that spoke already?
He has, but he does have his hand up right now, so it's up to you.
And who else?
James Matthews.
Mr. Mathis, go ahead.
Doesn't even live there.
Yeah, I have a concern. I think they should both be deferred because once you let it go, this time we don't even have the other plans for the other houses. And also that when they do split the lot, you are going to lose all the trees because the way the way the lot's set up. I think you should go like the other fella said, is go with the 50-foot rule and stick with it. I mean, somebody can build a beautiful home on that 85-foot lot.
All right, thank you. Are you finished, Mr. Matthews?
You can say yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Herdman.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Matthews. I think both should be deferred. Splitting the lot is just opening up a Pandora's box for further building issues on the next project the person might want to submit.
Yeah, I'll go back to Mr. Goldberg. Your preference?
We're happy to have it deferred. Both matters deferred.
Okay, so that's what I'll ask for. I'll ask for a motion on deferral of the application. Moved by Mr. Pocock, seconded by Mr. Boudreau. Any questions? All in favor? It's carried. Now on the minor application of A424. Move for deferral on that one as well. Need a motion. Moved by Mr. Beneteau, seconded by Mr. Boudreau. Questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Goldberg, did you hear that? Oh, he's off the line already. Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we're going to move to application B2220 for Gord Danaher Farms. And I'll turn it over to Corrine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just checking my audio here 1 second. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so the next application on the docket is B2120, Gord Danaher and Danaher Farms. The agent for this property is John Robert Baudouin. And what you're looking at there in red is the subject site, and the property is designated agricultural, zoned agricultural A11. Next slide, please. The applicants wish to sever a parcel of land from the farm lot that contains a small wooded feature and pond. They wish to add this parcel to the property that is identified as 1270 Ridge Road. The existing farm lot you can see is in green there, and the yellow area that is outlined on the screen, that is actually a proposal for the creation of an easement across the pond in order to allow for a potential irrigation purposes in the future, especially after the dry year that we had, the owner of the property is still looking to just have access to that pond for those reasons. And it is a small portion of the property that is not in agricultural production, and it would be added to, like I said, 1270 Ridge Road. Next slide, please. Just a couple of street views of the property. There's 1270 at the top corner, the pond at the bottom, and you can see part of the woodlot behind the barn there. Next slide, please. In accordance with the policies of the official plan, in considering an application for consent, the committee should have regard for: number one, provincial policy. This application is consistent with the severance policies of the PPS. Number two, the official plan. Lot additions are permitted in agricultural designations for technical purposes. According to the OP policies, consent should only be granted for lot adjustments or minor boundary changes, provided both parcels comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. The owners of 1270 Ridge Road wish to add the wooded feature and pond to the property to protect it. The parcel of land has not been under agricultural production, like I said. Number three, does it comply with the zoning bylaw? As a result of this severance, a minor variance is necessary to recognize the small reduction in the retained farm lot parcel. The farm lot parcel will be reduced by 1.4 acres. Next slide, please. We circulated this application to internal town departments and we received no objections. Circulation to external public agencies was completed and we received no objections. We did receive one comment from IRCA stating that a portion of the property is regulated due to the adjacent Dolson Creek drain. Any works within the vicinity of the regulated area would require a permit. And they further stated that they have no objections to this application because of the lot addition. The lot addition is not considered development, and the purpose of the lot addition would be to add the natural feature to the adjacent residence, therefore protecting it. We didn't receive any written correspondence objecting to this proposal from the public. Next slide, please. Should the committee choose to approve this application, it would need to satisfy the following conditions: submission of a registered reference plan, signed transfers, confirmation of all taxes paid, drainage apportionments, and that severed parcel be consolidated with 1270 Ridge Road, and that all appropriate documents for the proposed easement be prepared and be suitable for registration. A copy will remain with the town, and all conditions need to be met by next year at this time. At this point, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, for discussion and questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Danaher, are you out there? Or Mr. Bodway? Mr.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm here with Mr. Bodwin in my office. I'll just turn my video over so you can see he's actually here. We're socially distanced in the boardroom. Mr. Danaher, unfortunately, is taking off corn tonight. I have him available by phone if need be. And hopefully, if there are any questions the committee has, we can answer them this evening.
Okay, back to the committee. Any questions? I have a problem with right away to the pond. I don't support that. I mean, I support the application, but I don't support that. I don't believe that that's being used for irrigation right now. And I don't believe Mr. Danaher, who owns the farms on both sides, plants any of those type crops. Am I correct?
I believe you are correct in one respect. That is that the pond currently is not used for irrigation purposes. When I asked Mr. Danaher about the need for the easement, oh, my apologies, just trying to shut off the phone. It didn't ring all the time during the previous meetings, and of course it rings when I'm speaking. So in any event, Mr. Danaher has been, previous to Mr. Danaher purchasing this property, the Morey family operated a nursery in the area. I'm not familiar, Mr. Bodwin may be, to what extent they ever used the pond for irrigation. but Mr. Danaher has explored a possible sale in the future to another group in the local area south of this property location, where that could come into play. And in trying to make an arrangement with Mr. Baudouin for the sale of this lot addition, indicated to Mr. Baudouin that in order to feel comfortable proceeding with this, he needed to keep an easement over that pond in the event that on a future sale, an owner such as the one he was in dialogue with had a need for an irrigation for that type of crop. Again, the principle here, I think, with Mr. Danaher is not that he needs it right now for irrigation, but that with the nature of the different types of farming that occur in this area and historically on this property, that he had the potential need for that and didn't want to impair his land value and land uses by not keeping an easement right for such an event.
Thank you. Mr. Beneteau.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't know who can answer. Can we grant that kind of permission in an easeway on, there's two different people that are going to be involved in this.
We can, but do we want to?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, Ed.
So is Mr. Danner going to have a problem if that easement is not allowed?
Technically, the agreement between the parties is that the agreement is conditional upon the committees granting the consent, including that easement. I would have to reach out to him by phone to find out if that is in fact a deal breaker. To date, it has been a deal breaker, but Mr. Baudouin was content to the granting of the easement. Again, the purpose here is just to allow for access to the pond down the road, if need be, to irrigate crops, if such crops needed to be irrigated.
So that agreement can be addressed just by permission from whoever owns it as well.
It can be. The reason a person needs a consent in front of the committee is where you want to make that an easement in perpetuity, i.e. longer than 21 years less a day. Under the subdivision control provisions of the Planning Act, we could strike that deal right now between Danaher and Baudouin, but it could only be valid for 21 years less a day. Anything broader than that, the committee has to bless the land use right to make sure good planning principles apply.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Again, I don't, who can answer this? If we give that easeway today and Mr. Danaher sells it to Mr. Hooker and then Mr. Hooker sells it to me, is that easeway still any good to anybody? Or is it better off for like the two guys that are buying to do it? You know what I'm saying? Instead of getting the municipality involved.
Maybe I can clarify. I think there's some confusion about this easement. All we are looking to do is have the easement run with the land. So what I mean by that is down the road, that easement right will automatically flow so that the owner, currently Mr. Danaher of the farmland, but down the road, whoever that owner may be, can go on to the pond, draw water to irrigate when and if necessary. It's not the municipality granting an easement. The municipality is merely saying we're approving the creation of an easement as between the parties. The municipality is not involved in the future under obligations respecting this easement.
That also opens a door for anyone to be able to go on those properties and travel that easement as well. Go ahead, Mr. Boudreau.
Sorry, I had to unmute my speaker. Through you, Mr. Chairman, and addressed to Mr. Hooker. An easement would be considered as simple as the right to access that pond. Is the same as the right to access somebody's property through a right-of-way or a driveway easement. Wouldn't that be registered on title for the length of the property's history? Like, doesn't that stay with it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Boudreau is on point here. It's just the type of the easement. Here, the easement is to draw water from the pond. Could have been an easement, as Mr. Boudreau notes, to go over somebody's driveway to access a property. I think the key important thing here is that Mr. Baudouin, who's here in the boardroom today, can speak to it, and Mr. Danaher are both in agreement that the purpose of the application is to acquire the woodlot and the pond, subject to the right of the owner of the abutting farmland to draw water from the pond to irrigate it. It gets registered on title with a stamp from the committee, just creating the lot and the easement, and that's it, no more, no less.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the application? I'm going to look for a motion from the committee members to pass the application without the easement. Now, if that doesn't work for you guys, we'll just turn it around and add the easement to the severance. But I'm asking for a motion without the easement.
I'll make
Moved by Mr. Beneteau. Is there a seconder? Mr. Boudreau. Questions? All in favor? Mr. Beneteau? It's carried. So the application is passed without the easement.
I just want to confirm that Brian Gray and Phil Pocock, you are denying the application, correct? Or the motion, sorry.
I'm not agreeing to that motion. I have no issue with the easement. I don't see how relevant it makes a difference about two farmers down the road when we're probably all dead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that yourself and Brian Gray do not agree to the motion. Okay, correct, Brian? Perfect. Thank you very much. It's still carried.
Okay, move on to B2220. I'll turn it over to Corinne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just give Sarah 1 second to bring up the screen.
Sarah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next application is, I've lumped these two applications actually together to save time, and it just makes sense to talk to these applications together. So again, properties in red, already stated agricultural use on this property. And next slide, the proposal. Okay, so I've lined up these two air photos for the purpose of showing you what is occurring here with two lot additions. Okay, so the first one, B2220. If you're looking at that air photo, look at the purple area there. That area is going to be added to the property to the north that Mr. Danaher also owns. There is a large creek that runs through this property that acts as this natural severance, this natural divide on the original property that we're talking about. Because of this reason, and maybe future sales in the future, Mr. Danaher wishes to add that purple pie-shaped area to the property to the north, which is 25 acres. But also, as a trade or a land swap, you could say, if you look to the other air photo, B22 or B2320, the area in green there is that northern property, and they wish to sever off that small pie-shaped, small purple area on the right side and add it to the south of the drain. Okay, so literally take one section, add it, and then the other pie shape is going to be added to the south property. The one for B2220, just so the committee knows, it's 4.2 acres. So the left side, 4.2 acres. The right side, 0.27 acres. Very, very small parcel in size. Next slide, please. Just some shots here of the agricultural lot, agricultural production. You can see the tree line there. That is the Dolson Creek drain. And the arrow there is pointing in the distance. There is that very small parcel on the south side. Next slide, please. So in accordance with section 6.4, the official plan in considering an application for consent, Committee of Adjustment should have regard to, number one, provincial policy. As we know, this application is consistent with the severance policies of the PPS for lot additions. Official plan, lot additions are permitted in agricultural designations for technical purposes. The OP policies state consents should only be granted for lot adjustments or minor boundary changes, provided both parcels comply with the zoning bylaw. These 2 lot additions will merge 2 remnant parcels physically separated by a natural creek. This consolidation will legally align the current agricultural operation of these parcels. Number 3, the zoning bylaw, as a result of this severance, it requires a minor variance for the reduction in the parcel that is on the south side of the creek. So it's literally going from 50 acres originally to 43.1 acres. Next slide, please. Upon circulation of the applications, we did not receive any objections from internal departments. We did receive one comment from the Conservation Authority, and they just noted that the property is regulated by the Dolson Creek Drain. There are no works happening on the property, so they did not have any objections to this. And after giving public notice, we did not receive any other correspondence from the public. Next slide, please. Should the committee choose to approve this application, it will be these conditions: registered reference plan, signed transfers, confirmation of all taxes paid, drainage apportionments, and that the severed parcels be consolidated. Everything needs to be done by this time next year. Next slide, please. Due to the lot additions, I'm just going to go through the minor variance application that is necessary because of those consents. And it is because of the reduction in the original property, the original agricultural property. The provision states actually that an agricultural lot minimum size is to be 40 hectares or 100 acres or as existing. The lot area for this will be reduced from originally 50 acres down to 43.1 acres. Next slide, please. When reviewing a minor variance application, we need to make sure that the 4 tests are met. Number 1, lot additions for technical purposes are permitted under the official plan. Number 2, their variance will not have any adverse impacts on the adjoining land uses. Lot areas vary greatly in the agricultural district, and no agricultural land will be taken out of production because of this, these lot additions. The parcels have existing access, and the main use of the retained and the severed parcels will be continued to be under agricultural production, and the variance is necessary to accommodate the reduction in the farm lot. And next slide, please. Again, for the minor variance, we did not receive any objections to the minor variance. At this point, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, for discussions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hooker, you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a great deal here. I think this is pretty straightforward. Essentially, the Dolson Creek is not the legal boundary of the farmland, but it is the practical boundary of the 2 parcels that we're talking about. And in looking at this, my client, who owns both the parcels, is looking to have the physical boundary accord with the legal boundary. And all this does is just move the land to the way it's being farmed right now. So title equals the way it's being farmed.
Thank you, Mr. Hooker. Any questions from the committee? Any from the public? I'll look for a motion on the application B2220. We'll do the consent application first.
No.
Moved by Mr. Beneteau to grant the application, seconded by Mr. Pocock. Questions? All in favor? It's carried. Now I'll move to the minor application, A2520. Look for a motion to pass the minor application. Moved by Mr. Pocock, seconded by Mr. Beneteau. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move to the last one on our agenda this evening, application B2320. There's a smile on Sarah's face. Go ahead. Go ahead, Corinne.
She did already.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so you know, that's just to save you guys time, because I do ramble on quite a bit, apparently. I joined those two together, and that's why I discussed 22 and 23. So that is the land swap, the two pie-shaped parcels, and then the minor variance I just spoke to. So we just need one last motion for B2320, and we are done for the night.
Okay, thanks. Looking for a motion to move it. Mr. Boudreau. Second. Mr. Gray, you second it? Seconded by Mr. Gray. All in favor? It's carried. I want to thank everybody this evening. Okay, we'll move on to our other unfinished business. Sarah?
Oh, Corinne, do you have any unfinished business for the members?
I think she's going to speak to her part on, it's on here on the agenda for the training session. Yeah, that's coming up.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
No, we'll just go through this real quick. Correspondence, new business. Now it's your turn. Oh, new business. Hang on, Mr. Beneto's got new business.
I think when these people are being handed these signs, they have to be told they need to stake the property out so you can tell where the property's at. Like just to stick a sign in front of something, it doesn't do nothing. When I went out to look at these ones for Danaher, there wasn't even any signs. I had to walk the ditch and find the signs in the bottom of the ditch. They need to start staking the properties out.
When that happens, right, please let us know so that we can contact the applicants.
I know what you're saying, but they need, like, even, I'll use the example, the very first one tonight, they didn't have the property staked out. So you don't even know where the end of where the property starts or finishes or anything. They need to start staking out their properties.
So through Chair, through you.
Rita?
Is somebody trying to say something there?
Rita is speaking. She was just on mute.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
To Mr. Beneteau, yes, I know you've brought this up several times, and Corinne and Sarah have been advising applicants to do so. So what Sarah's saying is, if you see that they haven't done it, please let us know and we'll call them and advise them to do it. Because sometimes
I know, Rita, but I'm saying I usually don't go to like the day or so before. The sign that you guys hand them, it's there a lot of times, but they're still not staking out what they're after. You know what I'm saying? To put the sign in front, that's good. But you got to stake your properties out so you know what you're looking at. And they're not doing it.
Because the sign that you give them, windy as it is, a lot of them get knocked down. So it is hard to tell exactly where point A and point B is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I understand that. I'm talking about staking the property. I know it's been brought up before that we advise them to do that. And I know Sarah and Corinne and myself have been advising people. But, we'll continue to do so. And if you do happen to see a property that hasn't done it, please let us.
I haven't seen one yet, Rita, that has been done.
Okay, because we are advising people to do it.
Have you ever seen one that's been done?
No, I've seen, yeah, I have seen it.
Maybe one.
Yeah, not
Out
too,
in Colchester.
not too many. I have seen them. So,
I'm not kidding you, sir.
okay. Thanks. We'll move on here. Committee training session. Who's going to speak on that? Is it going to be Corinne?
I can, Mr. Chair, unless Rita would like to.
No, Corinne's the Secretary Treasurer, so go ahead.
Thanks, Rita. This is pretty cool. We have an opportunity through OCA to provide some kind of modules to the committee. And I think that it would be extremely beneficial for myself and for all of us to sit down together and to watch these modules. And it is an opportunity just to kind of brushing up our skills, because I know it's probably been some time since you guys probably had original trainings. I know you guys have been on the committee for a while, but just a chance to get updated, and then also have a quick chance for us to powwow and talk as well. So that's coming up in November. I believe that Sarah has sent out that confirmation to you guys. So perhaps Sarah can just mention for me what that date is and who has kind of gotten back to her and who hasn't.
So we have kind of done a poll, and it has been determined that November 10th, November 10th from 5 to 7, we will be at the McGregor Community Center for this training. So again, it will be November 10th from 5 to 7, and I have been advised that the majority of our members will be able to join us. However, if any members, if something does happen, we can always provide that training to you, either one-on-one with one of us and or in a package, if that's something that the Secretary Treasurer would like for those that missed the meeting.
What do you keep looking at me for?
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Notice a motion? Adjournment? Moved by Dan, seconded by Phil. All in favor? It's carried. I want to thank everybody this evening. It went off pretty good considering what it could have turned out to be. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good job.
See you on the 10th.